This is going to be a 67 Sunbeam Alpine walk around. So, last thing I did to this car was I installed a hood latch right there. I had a hood latch delete, which I put in the trunk with some other stuff I've got in there. Let's see what I had. Dual carburetor intake manifold, another dual carburetor, the Stromberg's intake manifold, and a couple stock single point distributors, and this is a clutch installation tool, and a hood release that's extra. I just replaced the U-joints in this car, so there's the U-joints that the Alpine takes. And then this is the delete panel that I had in there because I wasn't running a hood latch. And I wasn't running a hood latch because the hood opens like this. So if you're going down the road, even if you're doing 80 miles an hour, the airflow keeps the hood closed. So I didn't have a hood latch. That way I could just get out of the car and I could pop the hood, and I didn't need to unlatch it. But a hood latch is a good idea in case you're driving in a windy, stormy day or something like that. So I removed the delete panel and I installed this out of another one of my Sunbeam Alpines, and I painted it with Macy Ferguson red because it matches pretty close to the Summit Racing acrylic urethane that I painted this car with. This is Performance Red single stage paint from Summit Racing, acrylic urethane. But this is a pretty good match for it. So that's what I used to paint this one too, because it wasn't on there when I painted the car. And now I've got a working hood latch. Caitlin, could you pull the bonnet T-handle in there? And let it go, and pull it, and let it go, and pull it. So you see it does two things, and let it go. It releases this hook here, and it releases this guy inside here. So, right here, if you compress this spring, you can see where it hooks in there, and also there's a hook that hooks on right there. I don't think the spring is very strong though, because it doesn't pop the hood up that well. But the hood closes just fine. So what you do is take it and lower it to about like that, and then just let it go. And now it's latched. And that's latched. But to open it, you want to roll down this window. It's the easiest thing to do. And you want to come over here and you pull on it right here next to the radio where it says bonnet, and that's the hood release. And you wonder why the hood release is on the passenger side. Well, it's a British car, and over there they drive on the wrong side of the road. So the prop rod is on the passenger side in a US spec car, and the hood release is on the passenger side, because the steering wheel is supposed to be also on the passenger side, and you're supposed to shift with your left hand, which I wouldn't enjoy one bit. So again, just close that, and then to open it, well, you've got it. I'm pulling on the bonnet T-handle right now, and I'm still pulling on it. You see the spring didn't pop the hood up at all. So if I let it go, it's going to latch again, and I'm not going to be able to open it. So you pull on the T-handle with the window down, and you come over there, and it's a bit awkward, and that's why I deleted it in the first place. But that's how you do that. Alright, this door opens and closes just fine, and the window goes up and down just fine. The trunk, oh, and also in the trunk is the crank handle. which you can use to start the engine without your electric starter motor. You can crank start it, but if that ever whips out of your hand because the engine backfires, it'll come around, it'll whip out of your hand as you're trying to crank start it like this. The T-handle can whip out of your hand, come around real fast and smack you in the back of your hand, and it really hurts for about 3 weeks. And I've done that before, and I don't think I've used the hand crank to start it since, because it's pretty painful. Anyway, needs the seal right here for the weather stripping. That's not on there. And when you close it, I just got a couple little pieces of heater hose in there just to kind of cushion it so it doesn't rattle. But when you close this, you got to kind of close it firmly. Alright, so that latched. And then speaking of closing things firmly, this door right here, that's not closed. It won't open on you, but it's not all the way closed. That's closed. Alright, so that's halfway closed. It's got one of the two latches, but not both. Alright, but these hood hinges are a little bit worn, but you take it, close it firmly, and that's closed. Alright, just a heads up on the driver's door. Also on the driver's door, unfortunately this glass came out of the channel. This side glass rests in a channel right down there. You can't really see it, but to open and close this side window, driver's side window, what you want to do is you want to have the door open, alright? You want to take your left hand, you want to kind of put a little bit of pressure on there, and then you roll it down, and you're just kind of pushing down pressure just to keep the glass from staying up while the window channel and the regulator goes down without, alright? And then going back up, same thing. So, you see why I didn't fix it. It's not that terrible. It's not a terrible thing to have to live with. So I lived with it and I never did fix it. But you take it to any glass shop and say, hey, I need this window glued down because it came unglued from the channel that it sits in. And any glass shop, automotive glass shop, can fix that for you. Alright, let's talk about fluids. So obviously brake fluid here. And coolant here or here, but I usually just pour it right in the radiator and just let it overflow into the tank. Now here in South Carolina, I only run about 20% antifreeze and 80% distilled water. So in a colder climate, where it gets colder in the winter, you might want to run, 50% antifreeze and 50% distilled water. I say I'm only got 20% antifreeze in there, but that's because in South Carolina it didn't get too cold where I live, and I always keep it in the garage, so it's not really exposed to harsh weather come January. Let's see. So brake fluid, coolant, engine oil goes there. It says use Shell oil only, so there's a good shout out for Shell. And the dipstick is right here by the oil filter. Oil filter is really easy to get to for oil changes. And then you got the vacuum advance for the distributor, and right next to that you've got the dipstick. Alright. And there's that back in there. Alright, and that's it. Under the hood, no power brakes and no power steering. For the 4-speed transmission, it actually takes engine oil. I know a lot of older transmissions, 4-speeds, take gear oil, and some of the newer transmissions take automatic transmission fluid, even if they're a 5-speed manual. But this 4-speed manual transmission takes engine oil. So you pull this plastic or rubber plug out, and you'll see a fuel plug, and you unscrew that fuel plug out of the side of your transmission, and you just fuel it until it overflows. So that's your fuel plug and your fuel level indicator. So you just stick a funnel in there, fill it till it starts overflowing out, messing up your driveway if you don't have a drip pan set up under it, and then you know it's filled. Just let it drip out until it's done dripping out of that service hole, and then you put your plug back in. So I put 10W30 in there, but you could just run 30 weight, whatever engine oil you prefer. And I put 10W30 in the engine, but if you prefer just straight 30 weight, you can do that too. But the rear end takes gear oil. So if you're looking at the rear end, on just this side of the drive shaft. So you got the drive shaft coming in right there, and if you put your hand on the drive shaft, just to the left of that, you've got a fuel plug. And again, you take that fuel plug out, you fill it with 80 weight 90 gear oil, and until it starts leaking out, and that's also your level indicator. You put the plug back in, and then below that, at the bottom of the rear end, in the middle near the pumpkin, you've got the drain, if you want to drain the gear oil out. So that's how you do that. And I think that's all the fluids. Okay. Then inside the car, you got an 8-track player, and it used to work and it stopped working. It's all hooked up. It's all hooked up to the speakers, and you could have this 8-track player repaired, but it'd probably cost you a lot of money. You can go on eBay and find this exact model 8-track player for about $40. So this is a good 8-track. This tape plays just fine. If you were to get a new 8-track player that was the same exact one as this, you could mount it right in this car and hook it right up to this wire harness that I've already got, because you know all the color-coded wires, what wire hook up to what, and you have an 8-track player. Or just ditch the whole thing and put a radio right there, whatever you want. But when I turn the ignition on, you hear that? That's the blower motor. Right here is the switch for the blower fan for the heater. So that works. And right now, this 8-track player is trying to play. See, it's trying to play track 3, but this is the track select, and it's not changing tracks, and it's not playing anything. So I don't know what causes that, but it's trying. I don't know how well you can see that, but there's track 3 lit up. The green indicator light saying that it's trying to play track 3. And you can hear it trying to do something, but that's not working, which is unfortunate. So I'm into 8-tracks. It's my other hobby. It's a cheap hobby. When I don't have car parts, I buy 8-tracks. It's kind of fun. So the ignition's on right now. There's the ignition off. The headlights work. They're right here. This is headlights on. This is headlights off. This is panel lights. Panel lights work too. The dash lights, they all work. This is wiper on fast. This is wiper on slow. This is wiper off. The wipers work. Blower motor works. High beams for the headlights work. They're down here, of course. Get those with your left foot. And there's an ignition switch right here. This switch, if it's down, it's off, and if it's up, it's on. Alright, so this is off. If the engine is not running, you want this switch off. Like right now, the switch is on. I'm sending right now, even without this key, if this switch is on, I'm sending 12 volts to the coil right now. And I don't want to send 12 volts to the coil unless the engine's running. So let me turn that off. Alright. But now I'm going to start the car, so I do want 12 volts to go to the coil, because it's not going to get the 12 volts from right here because it needs a new ignition switch. Also, this key, the key's worn pretty good. I don't know how well you can see that, but the teeth on it aren't very good. I mean, it works just fine, but it's kind of loose in there. If you got a new ignition switch with a new key, it would make a world of difference, and then you wouldn't need this toggle switch that I've got down here by the aftermarket water temperature gauge. Alright, but anyway, to start the car, you turn this ignition switch on, which is pulling it up towards you. Alright, so towards you is on, and away from you is off. So there's on, towards me. Put it in neutral. Alright. So now we're running. The tachometer is not accurate because of the HEI V8 distributor, but when you're starting off in first gear, just kind of go heavy on the gas. But once you're going down the road and you're moving, shifting to second, third, fourth, it's real easy. Good clutch, good brakes, all that stuff works fine. Put the brakes right now, and we're stopped. So we're going. And we're stopped. And there's reverse. And there's first. There was a little pothole. And we're stopped. Alright, so all that works. What else can we talk about? To turn off the engine, there's the key off. See? Engine stays running because, like I said, with or without the key, this thing is sending 12 volts to the coil. Alright? So, there. Now the engine is off. And this switch is off. And you don't want to leave this switch on. You leave this switch on overnight, you're probably going to damage your HEI distributor. Alright? You don't even want to leave a switch like this on. If you've got a toggle switch like this energizing your coil with a points distributor, you don't want to leave this guy on overnight either. Alright? So if your engine's off, turn this off. Push it away from you to turn off the ignition. And now the car won't start. Now, if I try to start it, it won't start because there's no voltage to the coil. So, towards me. And there's that. Alright. The engine's warmed up now. It warms up to about 180, 190. Right now it's not quite that warm, but I let it warm up earlier today just so it would stay running. When it first starts, the first start of the day when it's cold, it takes a while to warm up, and it won't stay running until it does warm up. But you can probably play with the choke and the fast idle that's associated with the choke and get that ironed out. Like I say, I just let it warm up in the morning and I feather the gas to keep it running until I want to start driving. Once you get going down the road, you're fine. You can warm it up if you're going down the road if you've got, a nice, good road where you live, where there's not going to be a bunch of stop signs or stoplights right away. So that's the engine, except for the toggle switch, pretty normal stuff. So key off, toggle switch off. That's all good. And what else can we talk about? So I don't think I mentioned it, but the ignition key is saw side down. I know a lot of old cars, well, some old cars like Fords are saw side up, but Sunbeam Alpine on the ignition key, saw side down into the ignition switch. And this other key on the key ring is for the center console right here. You don't have much of a glove box. There's no glove box door that you can lock or anything like that. There's just like a little cubby hole there. So the center console, you can fit some stuff in there. And you can close that, and this key locks the center console. And this one is also saw side down if it's unlocked. So to lock it, you put it in saw side down, and you turn it half a turn, and now it's locked. Alright? So when it's locked, then you want to go saw side up, because you turned it half a turn. So there's saw side up, and you turn it, and now it's unlocked. Alright? Oh, and then the battery's right there. And you need a 3/8 nut driver or a 3/8 socket to get these 6 bolts out. And then your battery's right underneath there. And while I'm talking about the battery, there's something else I could mention. Let's go over here. Put that key there so I don't lose it. Alright. Let's pop the hood. So now we got to go back over to this side of the car. And we'll pull the bonnet. Alright. Okay. The battery's kind of hard to get to. If you ever had to jump start or charge the battery, like I say, you got to pull those 6 3/8 bolts out to get to that battery, and that's kind of inconvenient. But it's got a Ford style starter solenoid. So getting to the battery for jump starting or charging the battery, you can get to it from under the hood, because this battery cable right here, okay, so here's your starter solenoid, Ford style, just like an old Ford Mustang or Ford Thunderbird or Ford Galaxy. This cable on this side of it goes straight to the starter. But this battery cable on this side of it goes straight to the positive side of the battery. So if you want to charge your battery or jump start it, just hook red up to right here, and then you've got a solid connection through this cable right to your battery, right? And more importantly, you've got a solid connection through the starter solenoid right to the starter, right here. So this is actually a quicker point to connect to than the battery itself, because the battery is farther away from the starter than this terminal right here. So you hook your red lead up right there, and you hook your negative lead up to a good ground, which I find this bolt right here on the steering box, or this bolt right here on the steering box. They don't have paint on them, and they make a really good ground. And so jumper cables, you hook red up right there on the starter solenoid, and you hook black up right next to it, right there on the steering box where it's not painted, and that's where that stuff is. So that's just kind of handy. And I think the last thing that I should mention is the top. Alright, to take this fiberglass top off, you've got a latch right here, and that's unlatched now, and you got a latch right here, and that's unlatched now. Alright, I don't know if you can see that. There's that latch, and there's that latch. Alright, and then there's a little prong that just slides into this area right here that's painted red. There's a little prong that just slides right in there just to keep it locked in and keep it from moving side to side. See, that one is right in there as well. So when you push that in there, those just go right in like that. You kind of see it right there. Anyway, latch these. There. Now the top is locked in. As for the back, and then I've got like a little Velcro right here just to keep that guy from coming up. And then I got a little piece of safety wire over here. And sometimes I'll tuck that safety wire in like that just to keep this thing from flapping down on me when I don't need it. And when you do need it, there you go. You've got it. But usually I don't need it. Anyway, there's that. For the back, that's the front. For the back, I've done a couple things. I've got metal tabs, just aluminum little tabs right here. I got one bolted in right there. And I got one metal tab bolted in right there. There's the bolt holding it, and it's just a tab. And all these tabs do is when you're putting the top on, you can set it down so that it straddles the tab, so that each of these tabs is on the inside and the top is on the outside, and that keeps the back of it from just kind of moving side to side a little bit. It keeps it centered better than it did without those tabs, and that's why I put those tabs in there. And if you wanted to remove the top right now, you would just take these springs off. Now, if I'm just driving around town, all I have is these two springs. But if I'm going to be going highway speeds, and I've got this top on, and usually I drive it with the top off, but if I've got the top on, theoretically, and I am planning to go highway speeds, I'll add some safety wire, or just baling wire, or whatever you want to add, just for an extra measure of security. And that's what I've got right there. You can see the pigtail right here, where I twisted it up and pigtailed it. But that's what this is. This is alongside the spring. This is just metal safety wire that I've got. And that just really keeps it locked down tight. Because going down at highway speeds, you really wouldn't want this back to, you know, kind of come up a little bit on that spring. But just putting around town, you don't even need those. Anyway, that's the only thing locking the top on. So if you want the top off, you just cut that wire off and throw that wire away, and then unhook that spring, and cut that wire off and throw that wire away, and unhook that spring, and then unlatch that, and unlatch that, and then the top lifts right off. Alright, what else? This radio doesn't work. It would be nice to get it restored, repaired, whatever, but it doesn't work. And oh, this is for the trip odometer right here. Let's see. There it goes. 2585, 3585, 5585. All 8s, all 9s. There we go, trip odometer. Yeah, the trip odometer works, and the actual odometer works, and the speedometer works. And the oil pressure gauge works, and the amp gauge, I don't think it works. And this temperature gauge does not work, which is why I have this temperature gauge hooked up. And the fuel gauge does work. And the turn signals work, and the headlights work, and the wiper works. Yeah. I think that's it. I think that's the car. It's a fun little car. It goes through the gears real nice. It's fun going down the road. It would be nice if it had a V8 or even a V6, but that little 4-cylinder does okay. And it's just a lightweight, fun little car to drive, kind of like a little go-kart. Oh, here's something that you wouldn't guess. This is your indicator for the turn signal, and this is your indicator for the high beams. And if you flip it like that, then you can't see it anymore. And if you flip it like that, then you can see the light. Cannot see the light, can see the light. Can see the light, cannot. If you flip it up, you cannot see the light. If you flip it down, you can see the light. Which is a really weird thing, because looking at it, you can't tell the difference. It's a real weird thing for the car to have. But I remember once I thought, well, how come my turn signal indicator's not working? And this one, if it's a left turn or a right turn, this is what lights up. You know what I mean? There's not like one for the left and one for the right. So either turn signal is going to indicate that you got your turn signal on right here. And also you're going to hear it. Let's see. There's the blower switch is on. Let me wiggle this ignition switch. There it is. Alright. So there's my blower on, so now I know my ignition switch is on there. So the blower's off. Alright, and then turn signal. Alright, so you see there's a left turn, and that's the one that lights up. And there's a right turn, and that's the one that lights up. But if you go like this, then you can't see it light up anymore. Isn't that weird? Why even have that? That's a crazy thing. There, now you can see it. And now you can't. I don't know why you would do that. Anyway, both the turn signals work. They don't turn off by themselves, so after you go around a corner, turn off your turn signal, or you'll just keep going down the road with your turn signal on. And I see this indicator on this side. This is just for your high beams to let you know your high beams are on. What? You're still here? Alright. Headlights. Headlights on. Low beams. High beams. Low beams. High beams. Low beams. High beams. Low beams. Headlights off.